The HR Stories podcast is brought to you by the team at HR Stories. The team at HR Stories helps businesses, nonprofits, and HR practitioners better manage the employee experience, providing the tools, training, and resources needed to get HR right. For more information, check out our website at theteam@hrstories.com. Each week on the HR Stories podcast, HR and leadership experts John Thalheimer and Chuck Smikian dive into the stories that matter most to you, our listeners. We have found that there is a lesson in every story. And now our host, John Thalheimer and Chuck Smikian. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the HR Stories podcast, where there is a lesson in every story.
Yes, that is so true. John, this is so exciting because we are on the other side, the other hump of 100 episodes. And folks, if you did not catch last week's episode, you need to. The 100th episode show, the anniversary show, nostalgia, HR stories, yucking it up. We had a great time. If you're a fan of the HR stories, you've got to make sure you double back and catch last week's episode. John, do I exaggerate or not?
Oh, it was great. It was a great episode. It was fantastic. I'm laughing because I know this has happened to you, but I feel like we've come in after the party's over and the streamers are down and the place isn't clean yet. And now we have to lift it up today and bring our energy and go boom and not let down, right? Because we set a high level. So we have to go up, up, up with our level, on there. So, Chuck, earlier today, we were out. We jumped on somebody else's podcast.
Yes, we did.
Lisa Smith's HR Boss Call. Which was fantastic. Love being on other people's podcasts and having the opportunity to share our message of creating systems in HR matters. It's going to deliver better results across the board, right? And so I thought it was a good episode. It was good seeing you 2 times in one day. I don't get to see that very often. As HR in paradise you are, I don't get to jump in there and do that.
It was great also because we were presenting to HR professionals. We did it last week with HR Pro Magazine, this week again. And there were fans, John. I mean, they loved our message. We shared the message. It was a great time. So folks, your team at HR Stories podcast, we're getting out there and we're talking about HR systems. We talk about checklists because we wrote a book, The Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition. It is taking off. You want to go to ultimateguidetohr.com. Check it out. But let's see if we can pump it up some more, John, and launch into a story of the week. In fact, this episode today, folks, is a lot of Q&A stories. We've got 4 stories with some questions that we will pose, and we're going to talk about it. But to kick it off, I know John's a reader. You know, readers are leaders. John's a leader. John's a leadership coach. And when he's not coaching, he's reading. John, what have you read in the news this week?
You know, I haven't asked a favor to ask of our listeners. Obviously, you come back time and time again. We appreciate that kind of stuff. One of the things that Chuck and I want to do in 2025 is we want to come to your SHRM conferences. We want to come to your SHRM meetings and talk about the importance of systems in HR, delivering that message wherever we can. So please email us at team@hrstories.com. We would love to hear, like, hey, John, could you come and talk to our things? We'll do our best to do that. Obviously, there's logistics in the way, of course. But, you know, we love being on, just zooming around, right? We'll come in there virtually as well and do all that. We'd love to do that, yes. So, all right, so you asked me about my story.
Yes.
So, Chuck, have you ever played the game Would You Rather? So, would you rather let me see, make something up. Would you rather drink 22 Diet Cokes or 14 bags of M&Ms?
Okay, that's a good example. I like that. You pulled that right off the cuff. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like a kid's game,
so
right?
notice, ladies and gentlemen, he is not answering that. Well, I think it's more like a teenager game. Okay, so
I love
here's the
M&Ms.
question I have for you. And this was an article that came out. Let me see if I can find the article. Okay, so here's what the article asked. It asked employees, would they rather work full time on site or break up with their romantic partner or get a divorce? Now, they surveyed, live career surveyed 3,853 respondents, and here's what they found. 43% of U.S. adults are more afraid of working on site than they are of breaking up the romantic partnership.
43% more afraid of working on site. Okay.
Yes.
It's like right after Halloween time. It's still scary.
I mean, I don't like, I think it says something, right? And I think it says that when we're talking about remote work or hybrid work or bringing people back in the office, people have very strong feelings about that. And we need, as HR, we need to walk through that and make sure that we are recognizing that people are having those strong feelings. In the article, the author goes on to say, like, look, there's a couple things we can do here. Number one, we have to make sure that we're messaging that message in a way that the employees are going to respond as positive as possible about, right? And so, again, thinking about, okay, how do I respond? When do we do it? Is it happening next week? Is it going to be rolled out? What is that process to do? Like, if you say, hey, next week, or let's say next month, we're going to start going back full time, versus, hey, look, by 2025, November of 2025, we want everyone back full time in the office. Here's how we're going to roll that out. By March, we're going to expect you here 3 or 4 days, by whatever, right? And so kind of rolling that out, allowing people to digest that can be really good. And then also, the other thing that I would add is you have to think about accommodations, right? Is there somebody that needs to work from home? You have to allow that to happen. You can't put 100% like everyone needs to be in the office, because somebody may have a legitimate concern in terms of accommodation.
Yeah, return to work is still a hot button issue out there, and how you handle it, how you present it, how you communicate and over communicate it, and is essential for your employee relations. So thank you for sharing. What company, out of curiosity, was all that based with?
So that was Live Career did the survey. LIV Career did the survey.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right. Well, then I do have another one.
Oh, excellent. I love it.
As you said, I like to read and I like to browse and I like to find out what's going on in the world. And so, one of my favorite sources is Gallup. Because Gallup gets the information, right? So they do the surveys and they talk to people and they look at this data and they squish it and squash it to make sure that we understand what's going on. And so my other favorite subject, as you know, is management, leadership, right? And so they just came out with a survey about organizational culture. And so I have to ask you, Chuck, in terms of employees being productive, how important do you think organizational culture is?
Well, I think if you want long-term productivity, that can continue to maintain itself and grow, organizational culture, having positive organizational culture, very important. Yes.
Again, the research backs you up 100% on that, right? We know having that there. Well, here's what happens. Let me get back to the article here. Sorry, I was looking at you there. And so they looked at they did this survey, and what they found was that there's been a steady decline. There was a steady decline in how workers connected to their company culture. And so they kind of looked at that, and what they found was, and I thought this was interesting. So for the first time in a little bit, managers' connection to company culture went up by 4 basis points. So again, it didn't go up that much, let's be honest, but it did go up a little bit.
Yeah, it's headed in a positive trajectory.
Yeah. And again, one of the things that amazes me is, so they have this broken up by leaders, they have it broken up by managers, and they have it broken up by individual contributions, right? And so when they ask leaders if they felt connected to their organizational culture, 40% said yes.
Oh.
Yeah, 40%. That's really bad.
60% said no.
But what they found was, in the last quarter, from Q2 to Q3, the managers have gone up 4 points.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good deal, right? So it's gone up a little point. It's still not high. It's only 23%, but it did go up 4%.
Oh, 23. I thought you said, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great, yeah. So So I mean, again, it's a major miss in organizations. I think a lot of people do that. So here's some findings they found. So when employees strongly agree that they know what their organization stands for and what makes their brand different from competitors, they are 11.3 times as likely to strongly agree that they feel connected to the organization culture. When employees strongly agree that their leaders are committed to their cultural values, they are 9.8 times are likely to rate the culture of the workplace as excellent. Meaning that if the leadership gets good culture, and they believe in it, and they're making sure that we're talking about it, the employees are going to come along as well.
Yeah. And too many times, John, where I've seen they rely on HR. Oh, you're the culture drivers. You're the it's like, goodness gracious. You know, we got so much on our plate, and now we got to drive the culture. I mean, let's all get together and drive the culture. So yeah,
I mean,
that's interesting.
I think HR can help by giving them initiatives and things they can do, but if they're not walking the walk and talking the talk, then it's going to fall out there as well. And so they leave us with 4 questions that we in HR and leaders can ask themselves. Can I define our culture? Do I speak consistently about it? Do I role model it? Do I live up to it? And I think, again, I think that's an important part, right? And so again, doing that as well. And one of the things they say in this article was culture starts at the top, which I'm not as a big believer in that, because culture to me is the way it feels when we all work together. And so I don't think leadership can change this. I think leadership, HR, and employees have to they've created the culture they want. I'm telling you that now. Right. And so when your culture's messed up, it's because that you as an organization has messed it up. It's not a single person, it's the group of people. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of like, I need to be paying attention to culture and how it works and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And when it's a group of people, they're all looking around saying, who's going to fix it?
and then they're like, well, let's HR. HR is not, as you said earlier, is not going to fix it by themselves. It has to be a group effort. And I think it starts with, and I do this a lot, it starts with strategic planning in defining the organizational values and not just saying, hey, these are our values, but these are the behaviors that we relate to those values, right? So values are internal, behaviors are external.
And we could talk about this because I find the topic fascinating, because I do think that the top person has to at least make that decision that we need to adjust the culture, change the culture, whatever, fix it, whatever the wording is, because if we all try, I don't know, I always feel like it has to be that top person. That person is a real jerk, and the beatings will continue until the morale improves. It's really tough to change things.
Totally. Like if they're not if they're not giving you the resources to change it or not making it a priority, it's not going to change. Absolutely. But they can't do it on themselves, right? They can't be like, well, I'm going to go and change the culture, right? That just doesn't happen. You can't have one person try to change the culture.
Yeah. And then people will.
You need a few.
You need a few. John, speaking of a few, I've got a few stories today. And they're all very topical. Yes. We did an episode like this a couple of, months ago, where we just told a couple of stories, posed a question, and we dug into it. So I really want to, I'm eager to do that. Why don't we take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll dig into those and break them apart and have some fun.
Listeners, you've been listening to the HR Stories podcast, where, as Chuck says, there's a mic drop in every answer.
Hey, it's Chuck here with the team at HR Stories. In the fast-paced world of HR, you need solutions fast. We are introducing our new book, The Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition, your go-to resource for navigating the complexities of HR with confidence and ease. Hey, whether you're an experienced HR professional, a student, or a small business owner, this book is designed to give you immediate answers to a wide range of HR challenges. Wasting time sifting through endless reference books, unreliable web content, countless YouTube videos, our guide cuts through the noise with over 80 actionable HR checklists that cover everything you need in the world of HR, from onboarding and performance management to legal compliance, crisis response. We've got you covered. Why is this book a must-have? Because it provides you with immediate answers, saving you time, helping you avoid costly mistakes, and it's an essential tool for anyone looking to elevate their HR game. So head on over to the Ultimate Guide to HR.com. That's Ultimate Guide to HR.com to get your copy of the Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition. Streamline your HR tasks, stay compliant, and create a workplace where both employees and management thrive.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from our break. Wow, 100 episodes under our belt, and Chuck is going to bring to us some big questions.
Yeah, big questions.
Some stories that kind of answer those questions. So I'm excited. I don't know where you need me in this, Chuck, but I'm here. I'm here to help you.
I want you here, John, because you think of, as I go through things, you always seem to have great points and great questions to kind of integrate in. But the first thing I want to talk about today is about, the story's called Paying the Price for Smoking. Paying the price for smoking. Can employers legally hike your health premiums and charge more if you smoke? Have you had any experience with this?
I'm looking forward to having a conversation about this. I do not smoke, but I've had coworkers that have, and we have never charged them. We've never hiked their premiums based on smoking. But we did something else more creative. But I don't know if we want to get into that.
Yeah, we may as we go into this. So these are recent stories from October 2024. So charging smokers higher premiums, it might seem like a reasonable strategy to promote wellness, but it can also create legal risks if not done correctly. So this comes out of the Campbell Soup Company. which is now Campbell Company. I think they dropped the word soup, by the way, I read, because they do much more than soup. Yeah, so the Campbell Soup Company. What's that?
Can I interrupt before you get into this? Can I interrupt before you get into the story? So I want people to understand that why companies would go after smokers, right? It's not because they don't want them to smoke, really. It's they don't want to pay the higher insurance cost for smokers, right? They want to pass that cost on to smokers because why should they pay for it is what their thought is.
Right. And, for long-term companies like this, where, Campbell Soup Company, some of these larger, more established companies, they have kind of lifers working there. And when you're in hospitality, or you got a lot of transient people in and out, that sort of thing. But there's a thought that if someone's going to be here for a while, they eventually may get sick. If they're smoking, they may have emphysema. They may have different types of treatment. So if we can charge smokers a higher premium, or in our case where I worked, we actually gave a discount to non-smokers. And we also offered a smoking cessation program to kind of help them get off smoking. But and we actually had a non-smoking campus, so no employees could smoke on property. But in this case, this is a guy named Jamar Spencer. So he used to work at Campbell as an employee, and he filed a class action suit claiming that the company's tobacco use surcharge, and he was only paying $12.50 extra a week, or $650 annually, violated ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which I thought that was kind of neat. First of all, I don't know who ever reads that, but apparently Mr. Spencer did. Or someone in Mr. Spencer's life did, and he argued the surcharge unfairly discriminated against employees based on health status. Now, I will tell you, in the state of Florida, and I'm pretty sure most other states, you can still discriminate against smokers in that if you decide you don't want to hire, I worked for a company, literally, we're not going to hire any smokers. And they did a nicotine test and everything. And apparently that is still legal. That is still legal to do. So, but this is interesting because federal law does allow for tobacco surcharges, but only if they're part of a compliant wellness program. That means if you're going to do this as an employer, you need to offer a reasonable alternative like a smoking cessation program, and clear notice informing employees how they can avoid the surcharge by meeting that alternative. And according to Mr. Spencer, Campbell failed on both fronts. So, John, it's not just, hey, let's just charge smokers more and, let them figure it out. You have to, and as we talk about on the HR Stories podcast many times, you have to have a plan, and you have to communicate that plan. And so, it
makes sense. And I think, again, when we think about open enrollment, right, because that's what you're talking about, in open enrollment, you have to communicate the offerings in a clear, concise manner so the employee can understand it. It can't be full of legalese and all this stuff. You have to make sure that the employee can communicate that pretty clearly. Understand it.
And the interesting thing here is if you're not involving an attorney in any of this, you may be cutting yourself short, because I never would have thought to look at ERISA and violating their anti-discrimination provision. So a couple of key takeaways here. Number one, compliant programs are crucial. So wellness surcharges need to align with ERISA by offering an alternative to avoid the fee. Hey, When I did this at my property one time, like I said, we had these programs. We had this thing like a laser thing. We offered classes. It was really interesting. Transparency is the key. Second thing here, employees need clear, consistent communication, and you want to stay on the right side of health wellness programs. You need to ensure the policies are designed to encourage health. And I think you and I talked a little bit about this maybe off camera. It's not a penalty. We're not hating smokers. We're encouraging health. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
So, I mean, I think what you and I were talking about is in the programs that we were doing, this was the base fee, and then we would give a discount to the non-smokers, right? And so kind of putting that in place. And again, I think, one of the things that we don't think about is there are still a lot of people that smoke, and we can't discriminate against, what is it called? Like other health factors. We can't discriminate against that.
yes.
And so,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
great.
the
Question.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. The second question, and you told me I should have led with this, and I completely forgot, but we'll go to this for our second question. So you teach a lot of classes, especially payroll law, and I know this person. You often ask the class if they know who.
Who Lily Ledbetter is. If you don't know who Lily Ledbetter was, you need to go and do your research. Now, luckily, we have Chuck here to talk about this and why one woman's fight over a paycheck can teach us about how laws get changed in the United States of America.
Yeah, unfortunately, John, and I know I revealed this to you earlier today. You were not aware of it. We have to say who Lily Ledbetter was rather than who Lily Ledbetter is. You see, this past October, Lily Ledbetter, who, her relentless pursuit of justice, her personal fight against pay discrimination brought national attention to that issue. She did pass away a few weeks ago at the age of 86. And it's a fascinating story. And I just wanted to share a little bit of it. And we could, go from there. I know we've talked about Lily Ledbetter. We have a couple of episodes where we talk about the court cases that changed HR. And this is one of them. So she was at Goodyear Tire and Rubber in Gadsden, I think, Alabama. And she worked as an area manager for nearly 20 years. And it wasn't until she received an anonymous note that she discovered the truth that despite her hard work, she had been paid significantly less than her male colleagues. And you may know this story. Did you ever hear about the note? I guess she was about to retire and someone slipped the note, like it was on her desk or she had a locker. And they said, guess what? You're being paid less. And then the people that you work with. And I think the story went that she, about the same time frame that she was hired 20 years earlier, 3 or 4 guys started at the same time frame, and they all worked at the same job, and they all pretty much did the same thing, right, John? And every year they got a pay increase, but the guys got, if you could see my hands, guys got a little bit more. Lily Ledbetter got a little pay increase. The guys got a pay increase. Lily got a little, and eventually after 20 years, they were far ahead of her than she was. And did I get that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she sues Goodyear under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act for gender discrimination. And at first she won, and she won almost over $3 million. It was like, woohoo! But her victory was short-lived. Yeah, because in 2006, the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the decision. It was a 5-4 decision, stating that she had waited too long to bring the claim. Despite the fact that she did not know about the pay disparity for most of her career. So, that's, I think when it comes to discrimination, usually have like 180 days, or in some states, 360 days to bring forward a discrimination claim. But I guess she doesn't give up, and she became an advocate, working along with organizations like ACLU and National Women's Law Center, and she tries to push for change. And eventually, a law does go into effect called the Paycheck Fairness Act. And I think Obama signed that into law, maybe.
2009.
Obama signed that into law, and I think Hillary Clinton, who was Senator Clinton at the time, helped Lilly Ledbetter push this through. But the law basically says that folks and HR people, you need to understand, if you the discrimination on someone's pay resets every time they get paid. So unfortunately, Lilly Ledbetter waited 20 years. She didn't know about this discrimination, but had she the law been in place, every time she got paid, that statute of limitations would have reset. So, anyways, tribute to Lilly Ledbetter. She may no longer be with us, but her legacy continues. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what the lesson here, right? Let's get into the lesson here. The lesson is that she was definitely discriminated against, right?
Yes.
But so this goes up to the Supreme Court, and I don't think the Supreme Court did anything wrong. They read the law. The law said you have 180 days from the first time you get paid. Boom. Well, it's way after that. And it was just not a common sense law when it was put into place. And so it gets up. The Supreme Court goes, no. Well, then Lilly and her team, right, goes over to Congress and go, look, this isn't fair. This shouldn't be happening. You're not going to know in 180 days. That's 6 months. Who's going to know? Right? We don't share salary information. Most of us don't. Most organizations don't. We're not going to know. And so she kept pursuing this. And after the law was passed, she didn't stop. She was out on the speaker circuit. She was going, talking to people, making sure they understood their rights. So I think that is when one person, when there's injustice, can make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And she did. So salute to Lilly Ledbetter. Hello. And HR folks, now you know the rest of the story. Story number 3.
Oh, our third story. Which one is it? Where are we going with our stories? I love that you're jumping around.
Okay. Wings, beer, and bias.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hooters caught in a discrimination scandal, but it may not be what you think. So, have you ever been to Hooters, John? Do you want to admit this on live radio podcast?
I went to a Hooters in Florida on the side of the road somewhere in the deep middle part of Florida.
There you go. So
the only time?
Only time. Well, you've been to Hooters, and you know that they are, they offer food, and they have scantily clad women, and all this great stuff, right? And we've talked about how COVID-19 changed many things over the last couple years. So now you're thinking, what? COVID-19? Hooters? Where's Chuck going with this? So
Wings, beer, and bias. Where's he going?
Wings, beer, and bias. So Hooters had to lay people off during COVID-19. And but it's not about the laying off. It's about bringing people back. Once again, bringing people back to the quote office. In this case, when Hooters reopened in Greensboro, North Carolina, in mid 2020, 92% of the rehires were white and light skinned, even though 51% of the staff before the pandemic had been black or had darker skin tones. So the only black employee brought back was Taria Dottridge, who became the lead plaintiff in the case. So there were other black and dark-skinned employees that wanted to come back that left, and despite being qualified, they were told the layoffs would be temporary, but they were not rehired. And
right, so I want to do a little math before you get into this.
yeah.
So before COVID, 49% of the staff was white, 51% were black or dark skin.
Yes.
Or
So
colors.
it's about 50-50.
Right? Okay. And so COVID comes, and now they go back to rehire, and they rehire 92% that are white or light skinned, and they also hire Tara
Yes.
as an African American black woman. Okay, so I got it. I got the math. I'm putting it together. Okay, so what happened?
Yeah. So apparently, as you and I often find on the HR Stories podcast, there's more to the story. So according to the lawsuit, Hooters managers had long favored white and light-skinned servers, giving them more lucrative shifts, making discriminatory comments about the appearance and hairstyle of the black workers. Jokes about hairstyles, expressions of this light skin were part of a toxic work environment. And what have we always said about, jokes, right? Managers joking like that. You're setting yourself up.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can't see me, Chuck, but I'm over here shaking my head because, and this is the story that we tell pretty much every single time, not every single time, but we tell a lot where it's not organizational policy that gets people in trouble. It's the manager's interpretation of that organization policy that will get your organization in trouble time and time again if they don't understand the laws. Sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's your managers. Yeah. The managers are getting you in trouble. So 51% before the pandemic of black workers, 8% afterwards. And so anyways, in response, Hooters did reach a $250,000 settlement, had to provide back pay, damages to the affected employees. They all had to be marked as eligible for rehire in the Hooters system. If a qualified ex-employee expressed interest, they had to rehire them at a corporate-owned location within 12 weeks of opening, mandatory training, and then Hooters had to report any layoffs or recalls. But, it did send a strong message, but I can imagine the folks that were affected after all these years, they lost their enthusiasm, they lost their livelihood, and it's just not good overall. And I think getting off with $250,000 is a gift to Hooters overall. I think they got off light.
And Chuck, do you know, is Hooters a franchise company?
They're corporate owned stores and they have franchise stores. So you could have back in the 80s and the 90s bought a franchise Hooters location.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I say that is because a lot of times when there's that franchise system, and we don't know in particular, my assumption is that Greensboro, North Carolina was a franchise and the owners and managers were doing that, right? They were treating these people unfairly, and that's why they were being sent back to corporate, saying, hey, you can come work at one of the corporate stores because they knew people would not be discriminated in that manner. So again,
Yeah.
we use these companies' names to make a point, but I also want to make sure that people understand there is a big difference between corporate and franchise stores, right? So just throwing that out there for that 2
All
points
right.
for whatever it's worth.
2 points. 2 points.
2 points.
3-point
2
shot.
points to John.
Yeah. And so the bottom line is, as we talk about all the time, whether intentional or not, favoring one group over another can trigger that costly legal action.
Yeah, it's a good story, and it's just something to remind us all about. And again, to me, it's train your managers, I can't say it enough. Train your managers, train your managers. You're uncomfortable doing that, hire me. I will come in, I will train
You
your
will.
managers.
John
And not only employment law, but I will incorporate your employee handbook. I will literally put your employee handbook up on the slide and we'll talk about how that applies to the law. Now, I'm going to read your employee handbook before I get there to make sure that it's legal. But if it's legal and up to date, boy, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the impact it can have. Here's the one thing I want you to tell all your managers tomorrow. They are legal, but they can be personally held, legally reliable for the things they do in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that doesn't get them the training, I don't know what will.
Personally, legally liable. So,
yeah. Sorry,
John, do you watch?
Chuck.
That's okay. I'm coming up on our fourth one, but I got a question for you. Any fan of reality TV show? Do you like any reality TV?
I love This Old House. It can't get more real than Norm and Tom and Roger, all the guys there. I'm missing one. But you know, that's reality TV for me. Come on. What else could be more real than them building a house?
Big Brother, living in a house 24/7.
Oh, yeah, no.
Big Brother. Living in a house.
Maybe we should get you to audition for that. I think that would be fun to watch you.
Yeah, I'd be. You know, every season they have one token old guy or something. I could be that guy.
Yeah.
I could be that guy. So here's the next story titled "Love, Drama, and Lawsuits." Can reality TV stars sue over working conditions?
No way.
Yeah, well, guess what? I thought this was, I saw this come across the news feed. I'm like, oh man, I got to read this. And so you might think reality TV is all fun and drama and maybe your 5 minutes of fame, but behind the scenes, contestants on the show, and this is specific to Netflix, this court case. It was a show called Love is Blind, and the other one was called The Ultimatum. So those contestants were living through a different kind of reality, filled with grueling hours, minimal pay, and questionable contracts. So, you know, I don't know, folks, if anyone's fans out there, but Love is Blind season 2, contestant Jeremy Hartwell. Anyone remember Jeremy? He filed a lawsuit.
Something, Chuck.
What's
I have
that?
to say something. I have to say something. I don't know if I'm related to Jeremy Hartwell, but we have Hartwells. We are part of. Well, we're probably there. We have Hartwells of America. We are in the Hartwells of America. Great name. Been around for a long time. So anyway.
Okay. So Tallheimer, your family is a Hartwell line, correct?
There's a whole Hartwell line from my my mom's father. He was a Hartwell.
We need to look him up. You maybe get on Netflix tonight and see if you can find him. See if there's a resemblance. You know, but he sued and he's like, hey, you know, we were misclassified as independent contractors instead of employees. So that's interesting in itself. Is I guess when you're on this reality show, you come on as obviously you have to sign things, and I guess they sign them on as they call them independent contractors, and so as a result they were denied critical legal protections. Now this is in California, obviously, because a lot of these shows take place there. But basically, here's some of the allegations, the details of the complaint. Number one, contestants were forced to work, allegedly, up to 20 hours a day without proper breaks or enough food and water. Allegation 2. This is a good one. Producers supplied excessive amounts of alcohol while limiting access to food, creating inevitable drunkenness during the filming. And then allegation 3, each participant earned $1,000 a week, which averaged out to $7.14 per hour, below the California minimum wage of $15 an hour. And of course, Los Angeles had an overtime rate of $30 an hour. So outside of that, they had to sign contracts threatening them with $50,000 penalty if they quit mid-production. And it was a scare tactic. So I just found that fascinating because it's almost like you're trapped, right? You're trapped. It's literally like human trafficking, slave labor in a way. You can't quit.
You sign up for it. You know what you're doing when you go into it.
I guess, but you know,
I will say that I'm surprised at that $1,000 per week. That seems very, 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 very low to me. And again, understanding Hollywood's system is this wasn't Netflix, right? It was a production company that was hired by Netflix to do this. But of course, because Netflix has the bigger pocket, probably the production company didn't have any money. Right? They were probably paid very little to do this show. $1,000 a week, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to be on a reality TV show, please ask for a little bit more than that.
Yes, there you go. So Netflix and the production company did agree to pay a $1.4 million settlement, and they gave the contestants back pay, and a few other things. The lawyers got some money and things like that. So I just thought it was fascinating. It's a kind of a gray area of reality TV. Are they employees? Are they independent contractors? Are they contestants? What is a contestant? But I guess the bottom line is read the fine print, know your rights before signing up for your 15 minutes of fame. Blanket advice. I love it. Folks, you've been listening to the HR Stories podcast, a lesson in every story. Don't forget, check out the Ultimate Guide to HR Checklist Edition. It's our new book. It is out. It is very popular. We've gotten a lot of rave reviews. Ultimate Guide to HR, ultimateguidetohr.com. Check out the links below. You can even text us. You want to get in touch with the team at HR Stories, John and Chuck. We would love to hear from you, and see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the HR Stories podcast. The material presented in this podcast is for informational purposes only. Chuck and John always recommend using an employment lawyer or HR consultant to handle any legal concerns or HR issues. We do our best to double check sources and make sure the information we are providing is accurate. We may eliminate or embellish without changing the basic narrative to make the story easier to understand. In certain circumstances, we may change identifying information to protect the innocent. The HR Stories broadcast is brought to you by the team at HR Stories. The team at HR Stories is designed to help anyone with HR responsibilities be better at managing the employee experience. To engage with us, go to the hrstoriesteam.com and learn more about how the team at HR Stories can support your business or nonprofit. Thank you for listening to the HR Stories podcast, where there is a lesson in every story.